Overall, the transfer news this month for Arsenal and most of the Premier League has been pretty boring. Not a lot going on, and doesn't look like there's going to be much movements due to FFP and money concerns across the league. This, coupled up with the fact that teams just simply don't want to sell in January and players cost a lot more, means there's not going to be a lot of activity for Arsenal specifically. However, there has been a possibility that has propped up for Arsenal, and it is that Karim Benzema could join the club on a 6-month loan. Now let's talk about it. Now, of course, a pinch of salt has to be taken in these gossip talks. They are just paper talk, and it does seem like anyone is getting linked to Arsenal right now because the papers want there to be some transfer rumours, yet it doesn't look like we're really ready in a position to buy people this month. And it's even weirder because Karim Benzema is someone that's been linked to Arsenal for probably a decade now. The whole time Wenger was there, he was linked with us all the time, and when he was out of favour at Real Madrid, it was always like he was coming to us, and in the end that obviously never happens. He ends up being an even better player for them, winning the Ballon d'Or. Now, while I don't think this transfer would happen, and I don't necessarily believe all the talks, it does create a good discussion if we actually need him in this window, or actually need to bring someone in right now in a striker position, let's say, because I do think there's other positions that we would definitely need players now, but I think striker is the one that everyone really cares about. Now, it's important to give context of what Benzema is and where he is in his career. So Benzema's obviously a 36-year-old, he's very old, in the older bit of his career, and he's definitely not been in favour when he's gone to Saudi. He went to Saudi in the summer, and he's had a lot of problems with the managers on his team. Also, with the inconsistent fan bases there, and the fact that every team has a couple of good players, makes it quite an unbalanced league, so I don't think he's really been enjoying it. But he has scored 15 goals in 24 games. He still had a good goal level for someone you really expect. He won the Ballon d'Or obviously not long ago, and there's no doubt about Benzema's goal scoring ability. He's been able to score goals so well throughout his career and deserved the Ballon d'Or in 2022. He's consistently scoring 30 to 40 goals every single season for the last 3 or 4 years, and he's always had a good goal scoring record despite obviously playing for a very good team, but he was always good at Leon before that, and he can definitely score goals from anywhere. He's very good in the air, very good at headers, very good at long range efforts, and very good at curling it from just outside the box. He's also very good as a poacher and very clinical. Now, this is why I think a lot of Arsenal fans probably want to get him in, because he is really old and he's not necessarily going to be very quick, but he's a very clinical finisher. He can score from anywhere and he picks up areas on the pitch, and for a 6-month loan this really isn't a bad option, just to get someone that can finish the chances that we create and also have that special magic about him where he can score from anywhere, because his technical ability is definitely not decreased. Now, this is definitely true. I mean, he definitely can score goals from anywhere, and he definitely probably would help Arsenal in that sense, but he's never played in England before. This is something to consider, and he is 36, so you have to consider the age when thinking about him. He is very good in the air and he wins a lot of duels, and I do think this could actually help us when we do put them crosses in where it's just like lofted in when there's no one even in there. I do think he's very good at making the run to get into the box and head it in. I do think this could be very helpful for us. He's also someone that on the break could be very good at one-on-ones, but you don't really get them situations at the moment. Benzema also is very good at going down the wing and helping the wingers. He could very much help Martinelli and do interchange within him to help him get more space there while Havertz goes up front if he's in that left centre mid role. And I do think overall Benzema tactically would work for Arsenal. I just wonder if he actually has the ability or the actual want to do well. Does he have the interest to actually play for Arsenal in a very important 6 months? Also, buying a 36-year-old on a 6-month deal is something that Arsenal would have done before Arteta came in and Edu really got the system running. This is something that we did with Willian, buying these cheap options, and David Luiz, just to sort of gap stop the place in there, and I don't necessarily that's what Arsenal want to do, or what a long-term planning team does. Although any scouting team will look for places where they can get some cheap deals in the transfer window, is it really best to buy 36-year-old when your team is mostly young players and it doesn't really fit the age range for something they're going to have to pay a lot of money for this 6 months? I'm sure El Ittihad would not let him go for free. And despite him obviously having physical attributes, they might have decreased by the fact he is very old, and will he actually adapt to the league in time to actually be good enough? I mean, you saw it with João Felix. I know it's a lot younger, a lot different player. He just didn't adapt in that 6-month period he was at the Chelsea for, so he just couldn't get good, and it was just a worthless signing. I also do think that we've moved past the need for Benzema. I know that we need finishers, and I know that we have struggled in front of goal, but Benzema is really not that person that's going to help Arsenal. I know a lot of people would want to see him come to the team, but as such an old signing like that, if he picks up an injury, it'd just be worthless, and I just don't think it'd be worth it. I don't think he'd want to play for us. But Benzema is definitely unhappy with his football in Al Ittihad. He has said that he wants to leave Saudi Arabia, obviously only joining after 6 months, and there's definitely maybe a gap there. I've seen some people say that we should get him for 30 mil. Now that is stupid, and if it's a cheap 6-month loan, then there is something you can work with that, but I don't think long term that would make much sense to buy it. And also would decrease the value of our players such as Eddie, who we're looking to sell in the summer if he doesn't get any game time at all. And it is just a hard one, because I understand that we need to take risks if we want to win the league, but sometimes being patient is better in the long time. I do think his wages are around 30 million contract wise, price, and that would be a lot of money to pay him off on. I don't think Al Ittihad would just let him go for 6 months and pay most of that. They'd probably want at least a little bit back, which would not be good for the financial benefit if he is actually going to do that much impact for us. It is very much an impulsive, wasteful move. I understand that he would be very good and probably be good for enough for Arsenal to help them get quite far, but I don't know if he's going to help them win the league. I don't think he ever would, so I don't really think it's necessarily worth it. And it is definitely out of character if Arteta and Edu decided to do this, as they usually take their time and go for younger options. But in January they have gone a bit rogue, obviously signing Jorginho and Trossard, but they were very cheap options in the end. So maybe if Benzema can be done for a cheap option, I don't know if they'd be against it. Now maybe if Arsenal start to sell some players this window, maybe for a bit of money, I'm not talking about Cedric, I'm talking about people like Eddie and maybe Ramsdale, then maybe you could have Benzema come in for a 6-month loan, and then we could try and fund a big striker in the summer, which at the end of the day is not the worst option. It really isn't, even though Benzema is a bit of an impulsive sign. And I do think it would be cool to see Benzema at Arsenal after all them years of all them leagues, and it would be cool in that sense. And I still think he's got a lot of ability where he could score a lot of good goals for us, but I wouldn't want him to start every single game. And honestly, if you're going to pay anything above 10 mil or even 8 mil for a loan fee for 6 months, then it's really not worth it unless he's going to play all the time. And it has been made clear that Arsenal aren't actively looking for a striker, but if an opportunity arises, they will try and act maybe in this window. And if that's an opportunity big enough for them to act, it could be if they can get a right deal accepted. But obviously with people like Chelsea linked, you expect them to throw the bag at anyone because that's what they're like. Now this window has actually been overall very boring, so something like this would be fun, the whole football community as a whole, let alone Arsenal. But I do expect us to make considerable moves in the summer to buy big players into the club. There's a lot of players I think we are looking at. There's a lot of players that would want to join who we really could get, who could improve. So at the end of the day, if we don't sign anyone this month, it's not the end of the world, as much as it is disappointing because we would love to get players in. But because of FFP and we've got to make the Raya deal permanent, because we agreed on this before, then we can't really do a lot and there's not a lot you can work with. And as much as I'm not necessarily the biggest Benzema fan right now for Arsenal, it is pretty hypocritical of me just to not consider him about how he actually will be good. I'm not necessarily guaranteed that I think he's going to be that good if he joined us, but it's pretty hypocritical to not consider that he could be. He is a Ballon d'Or winner from just 2 years ago, and despite his age, it's not really defined on his skill and individual quality. So while he's not the person for me, I would not be against anyone who is the person for them. I do think he can bring a lot to the team, and if you want him to come to Arsenal, then I think that's a fair enough opinion to have right now on a cheap 6-month loan. And that's a good point. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. It probably won't happen, like I've said this, I don't think it's probably going to happen, but it's good to have these conversations and these players because we need to find solutions to certain problems with the team. So would you actually take Benzema at the age of 36, coming in on a cheap 6-month loan, we'll say, to help us score some goals? And that leads me on to say thank you for watching this video, and please let me know yet again in the comments what you think about Benzema and what you think about Arsenal's transfer strategy in this window and in the summer going into the future. Now, it's fun to have these conversations even if it's not necessarily going to happen or looking likely. If you enjoyed this video, please watch my video about where I talk about Timber tactical advantage when he comes back to Arsenal. And if you like any of my content, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.